All right. So I did something a little unhinged. I decided to make a completely fake brand that doesn't even exist with logos, mockups, photography, everything. 22 pages just to prove that I was able to create a brand mockup. And I was thinking to myself, is this what aliens do? Do they just make stuff for fun and not think about getting paid? The thing is, I am a graphic designer. Literally, I have been designing as a graphic designer for 10 years at successful companies. But the difference is I only do email designs, marketing designs, social media designs, video editing. I've never created a brand from scratch. I've always had to follow the brand guidelines that the company gave me. At Williams Sonoma, I had to follow their templates. At Shopkick, they had specific illustrations and illustration styles I had to use. And at Fetch, they had specific fonts, specific colors. I was contained within their guidelines. And I knew that I wanted to create a brand. It looked so fun. And that's where I get into why I thought of doing it. So basically, because I work all these weird hours, because I'm in Portugal now, I was pretty much working from like 3 in the afternoon till 10 at night. And there were nights I'd stay up till like 3 a.m. And I really, really enjoyed my nights where I was just binge watching things. I love just zoning out, laying in bed till sunrise sometimes, and just watching a ton of stuff and kind of losing myself in it. So I began watching a couple of YouTubers, and let me tell you, I was binge watching hard, especially Abby Connick, but also Gloria Condi. So I love the way that they teach. I feel like they're so entertaining, and I really liked seeing their process, like how they handled creating a brand from scratch. It was also really cool to see them design things like chocolate or a coffee company or a makeup brand. And because I was binge watching so much, I was like, I'm a designer. I can do this too. It would be so cool to actually make a brand. But I don't want to make a brand that I chose. I want to make a brand that someone else chose. And that's when my idea came up. So, because I was watching all of these videos on branding and what the process was like, I wanted to do it myself from the very beginning, the entire process. So, I kindly asked one of my close friends if she could be my customer and answer a Notion template that I got from Abby Connick. And these just have really great questions to understand what the client is looking for. So I told her, don't choose anything for me, just do it for yourself. This is something that you would want, and you come up with the idea and what you're looking for. So I sent her the questionnaire, and oh my gosh, it was so cool to see when I first got that questionnaire. All right, so the first question that she had was, sorry, the first question that I had in my questionnaire was, what do you see in the future? In 3 months, in 1 year, and in 5 years. So for 3 months, she literally said nothing. And I was kind of like, yeah, same girl. I kind of like doing nothing and sitting on my ass sometimes. So totally get it. But then she said for 1 year, she's like, relaunch. I want to relaunch this brand. That is my goal. And then for the 5 years, basically world domination. No, not world domination. She just said strict, strategic marketing, pushing hard on selling and going into tons of stores across the world. So just completely going hard, which was a fun idea to think about. All right, this has to be my favorite question. I asked her, who is your ideal customer? Who do you see this for? And what she said was, she sees it for empowered women who are not afraid to stay at home and just have a glass of wine by themselves while reading a book. And I was thinking, that's me. You're this is literally my brand. What like it's designed for me. So I enjoyed that, which was great. And I love to drink wine by myself. In fact, I'm drinking wine right now on the job. Cheers to working and drinking, especially as a stressed out designer. But the thing that I really loved about this answer is she didn't just say social drinkers. She didn't just say a working professional woman. She said an empowered woman who is not afraid to have a drink by herself and just skip the party night and have a nice book with a nice glass of wine. And I can picture this person because she has visualized an actual customer that I can pull from and get ideas from, which is technically me in a sense. And that is the first lesson for you. If your client cannot describe your ideal customer like their best friend, then you should probably go back and really get an idea. Who is this person? What do they do? How do they spend their weekends? We need to get a full picture of this person, not just a shadow version of it. So, the next question that I asked on the questionnaire was, give me 5 words that would describe your ideal customer. And she said, young, fresh, bold, courageous, and confident. And when I heard that, my ADHD brain was just going off like images of things and confidence and confident women and bold, bright colors. That was kind of where my head was coming with all of this. And sometimes it's really hard to maintain my brain that is constantly moving, but I was excited. The funny thing about this whole thing is, I also had another question asking about symbols or icons that you would want associated with your brand. And she said spring, flowers, butterflies. And that's when I realized this is kind of contradictory, which is also a good thing because I think if it was just bold, confident, courageous, it would have a specific look that everyone can kind of think about. But because it would combine the confidence with the soft feminine, it would be a very interesting look to it because I would have to play around with the two. Because soft, feminine, and bold, courageous, and confident are different things. But to mix it and create something that is even more unique was actually a really fun idea and something that seemed like a fun thing to imagine and create. So, this questionnaire actually had a lot of different questions, which I can show you right now. But the idea was it is a wine beverage for the working woman who just wants to hang out with their friends drinking wine or getting a nice book and just staying at home and reading that book. And I was excited to work on it. All right, so I am curious. Which one would you be more excited to work on? a bold and bright and courageous mood board or a soft, feminine, floral mood board? Because for me, I was actually excited to do both. And, I hear so many different thoughts on how many mood boards a designer should make. I have heard designers say one mood board, just one for the client to choose, and then they can kind of audit it themselves. I have heard three is another good option. To me, it felt like too much. I've even heard of designers showing like five different mood boards. And when I think about that, it feels overwhelming. So I decided to go with two separate mood boards. And I think you can guess what each mood board had. So one was the bold, confident styling, while the second mood board was all around the soft, feminine, springtime woman. But she was still confident. She just didn't really scream it in your face type of thing, which I actually really liked. So from this step, I pretty much just kind of spent hours on Pinterest, which I already do already. I mean, I love just looking at girly fun pictures and bad bitch quotes and confident woman stuff and crazy art and all sorts of things. Like half of my brain is probably living in Pinterest right now. So it was fun. I spent a long, long time just grabbing images, putting them in Illustrator, and then creating a 9 square mood board, 3 by 3, just to get the overall feeling and mood of the direction that this beverage would take. Also, I did not say the name yet. I'm so sorry about that. The name of this beverage that she wants to create is called Soleil. When I first heard it, I thought of the sun, like Soleil. Yeah, so that was what I was working with. But when I looked up the word Soleil, I found out that it actually meant free flowing, endlessly flowing. And I imagined a river just flowing, or like a woman who's free and just doing what she wants. And that was a great start for how I began to approach this logo. So now it was time to choose the mood board. Is it mood board 1 or mood board 2? I had no idea. But secretly, I was kind of hoping for mood board 2 because I thought it would be interesting to play around with a strong, confident woman, but with pastel, soft, floral backgrounds. And what did she choose? She chose mood board 2. Woo! I think I can drink to that. Also, if you like, you can also take a drink every time I take a drink. So that's when I really went into the logos. I was going off. And the funny thing is, I decided to go in 2 different directions with this logo. In my opinion, which you will see, the first one is a lot more amateur. I think it is just what an amateur designer would do versus a professional. So the first one, I thought, oh, it would be so cool to make the O as a flower. I could kind of see it. And I've seen many logos where they play around with a letter to make it look like something. And what better letter would be than O, because it's just a circle. So I played around with the petals and how to make that O look like a nice flower. The issue, to me, it kind of looked like a sunscreen brand, or sorry, I totally blanked out right there. So it looked like a sunscreen brand, but it also to me looked like some sort of like surfer wear company like Roxy or Hawaiian Island Creations. Being someone from Hawaii, I kind of was thinking, I think I was subconsciously thinking about all of these local Hawaii looking brands. And it's not bad. I don't think the logo is terrible, but I would just call it more amateur. It's kind of obvious. You know, you look at it, you're like, okay, there's the flower. Now, for the second logo that I designed, I made this one a lot more elegant, a lot more luxurious looking. And I didn't make it in your face like, oh, here's a flower. Oh, it means this. I did it subconsciously. And what I did was I played around with the shape of the letters to make it look free flowing. So it doesn't specifically say flower, but when you look at the text, you get the overall mood of this is a soft, elegant, luxurious logo, and there's no hard edges, and it just has more of a feminine, free flowing feel to it. And I think you can all agree by comparing the two, the second one looks a lot better. It also fits mood board 2 a lot more. And I'm gonna just have you guess. Which logo do you think my client chose? She chose logo 2. Woo! Another drink. I hope I'm not drunk by the end of this video, but if I am, I'm sorry. All right. Here's where we're going to talk about what I call the butterfly massacre. So my brain was going off, like usual, ADHD, all over the place. I'm a creative person, but not the most organized. But I use my creativity to the best advantage that I can, and I'm proud of that. So I decided to illustrate a woman. My first idea was to actually have an illustrated hand-drawn woman on Procreate. That was my very first, that was my other mistake that I made. I really should have sketched it out before I decided to go all in and illustrate this woman. And it doesn't look bad, but I feel like she looks like a cartoon character, like on Daria or maybe on Rugrats or something like some Nickelodeon or Disney show for some reason. Actually, she reminds me of Daria's friend a little bit. I forgot her name. But anyways, it just did not work on a beverage. And I spent time on that. And then I told myself, you know what? I'm going to use a real photograph of a woman. And I was really inspired by the collage look. Collaging, like grabbing images, putting them together was pretty popular at the time. I would say it's still popular now, to be honest. And, you know, I was collaging butterflies and the woman and flowers and just trying to make a cool looking collage. The only issue is it was not cohesive. It looked all over the place. And let me ask, have you seen any alcohol beverage drinks with collages on them? Flower or butterfly collages? Because I haven't. I don't know. It just seemed like it wasn't the thing to go with. So then I just tried, you know, maybe I'll just do some illustrated textures. I played around with just lines. I wasted a lot of time. And yeah, I should have sketched it out first. But it was my first time attempting to brand something, and I am okay with that. And once I realized it's time to kill the butterflies, I decided to start over. kill the illustration, kill the butterflies. It just was not working, sadly. But I learned a lesson. So for the next styling, I made it a lot more simple. This mock-up to me, once again, looks so much more elegant. I just went with simple, light gradient pastels. And, I hear this all the time as a graphic designer, like at my job. I tend to overthink things and spend a lot of hours that I waste doing too much and loading on too much. I have had many times where my boss is like, take things away, put things on the image and then take 3 away or 4 or maybe 6 for you, because I just like to stuff things on. Sometimes it works, but if there's something that I've been learning throughout this entire process, keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Seriously. My first logo was just too overthought out and it took a long time. Keep it simple with the logo. Keep it simple with the packaging. And it looked great. I mean, oh my gosh, I was so happy with how the mock-ups came out. It looks like a real actual beverage that you could grab at the liquor store or, whatever grocery store you're going into. Not to buy alcohol, but, you're just buying candy. I know you drink also. Now, for the final deck, which was 22 pages long, I pretty much just used the outline of Abby Connick's branding presentation. I took some things away, but I used that, and that's how I chose to what I wanted in my brand guidelines. All right. Now I am going to walk you through the brand presentation. Woo! Drink time. I wonder if I'm going to finish this by the end of the video. All right, so you start off with your title, brand presentation, business name, client name, the date, basic stuff that we would all assume. And then it is very important to make sure that you have the contents. That way your client is able to skip to a page that they want to see or just have that available so they kind of get an idea of everything that we're going to be going over. So I always make sure to start off with the company. We are talking about this company, Soleil, which is a sparkling wine cooler beverage. It is a female-owned business and targeted for confident women. And we really want to make sure that we have those keywords in, the words that you think about when you imagine this brand, because that is your guide when you are first starting to create your brand guidelines for a company. So this is the mood board that I chose. And when you're explaining your mood board to the client, you're just explaining why you chose it, what was the meaning behind it, and what were the things that you pulled from the questionnaire to create this specific look. Obviously, this was the one that was pastel, springtime, floral, confident women, but she's not screaming it in your face. These were also a few images that really inspired my final design because I was hitting a wall when I illustrated the characters and was trying to do the collaging stuff. And this was kind of my guide when I was figuring it out. But you can just also, when you speak to the client, be like, here's another mood board and just an overall feel of what your company would be like as a brand. Now we move on to the logos. So when you're explaining the logo to the client, you really want to make sure that you are able to talk about why you made these choices on this logo. Explain that I manipulated this text to give it a feeling of being free. And I chose this specific font because it is soft and feminine. This logo looks like it's designed for women. I think we can all agree on that. And just, really go into detail and explain. Don't just say, this is pretty, I like the way this looks. I chose to make the O with a free flowing river like design because it fits the word soleil. I chose to use a sophisticated yet playful font because that is the type of person that would be purchasing this beverage. I then show the logo with different backgrounds just to give an idea of what exactly it would look like. So for the next page, this is the logo mark. And when I was working at my other jobs, Shopkick and Fetch, I actually looked at a lot of brand guidelines because I worked for e-commerce shopping apps. So I would look at brand guidelines for Unilever, for skincare companies, for grocery products, all sorts of things. And each brand guideline is completely different. You can decide how much information you want. I will say that I do see brand guidelines where they have a primary logo and a secondary logo, as well as a logo mark. And how I would differentiate them would be the primary logo is the main number one logo used. The secondary logo is pretty much the logo that you would use if the primary doesn't fit. So if the primary is too long, you can stack it, or just other options on how the logo could be used, because many companies have multiple options of how their logo works. Because of the sizing of my primary logo, I did not think I needed to add a secondary logo. But it is obviously your choice, and this is something to think about when creating the logo for your client. But for this one is the logo mark. And I would say this is like what you could use in packaging or in patterns. You can have it on a sticker, you can have it in your social media, and it doesn't scream the name, but it gets embedded in the person's brain when they constantly see it. Imagine LV, the Louis Vuitton. I mean, all you have to do is see LV now and you just get it. Think about Nike. All you got to do is see that check mark and you know. Or even Apple. All you see is an apple as a silhouette. But that is the goal and the key. So I wanted to make sure that I had a symbol that looked different and was differentiated enough so that people could eventually recognize this logo mark. It also looks really good as a pattern. Come on, look at that. It looks nice as a giant O and also just as different sizes in a pattern shape. Next, I'm going to talk about fonts. So I'll just give you a quick rundown. When you're coming up with your fonts, make sure that your primary font is more like the playful, extroverted font. This is the font that is loud and the first one that you see, but the extroverted one leaves early. So it's just the headline pretty much. And that's the font that you can be a little more playful. You can get a little bit more creative with the primary font. For the secondary font, it is always going to be a lot more simple. This is the introverted font. This is the one that is quiet and chill and stays at the party for a long time. And I have used this style at all of my jobs, Williams-Sonoma, Shopkick, and Fetch. Very important to remember that, Make sure that supporting font is legible and really make sure that it works if you use it on a website or in a marketing post, that it works well together. Color palette. Now we're going on to the color palette. As a color person, color palette is always my most fun to work with. And just so you know, color palettes can be as many colors as you choose. Some people have 5 colors, some people have 10. Some people will also do primary color palettes, so they'll choose like 2 to 3 primary ones and then like 6 secondary colors. For me, based on my gradients, I pretty much decided to have one color palette using all of the colors in my gradients and just playing around with the saturation level of each of them. I also just decided to come up with some names that fit the color, and you can have fun with this. Make sure that it works with your brand that you're designing for. But it's nice to have the name just to kind of visualize it and remember it better. Of course, I had to do a gradient color palette because that was kind of the main idea behind this beverage. It has a full gradient around it, and that is the overall look. So obviously you don't need to have a gradient color palette, but I felt like it made the most sense for this specific brand. Design assets and illustrations. For this part, this is basically when you're thinking about patterns or like tissue paper for the product or the packaging for the product. You can come up with different patterns and styles that could be used for your brand. So I tried to give multiple options that really fit the tone and mood of what her brand represented. And I also tried to give multiple examples so that she could pull different types of patterns and design assets that worked the best for what she was trying to sell. Now we're moving on to photography and social media. I have to say, I see this a lot. I have honestly looked through hundreds of brand guidelines at my job, and I see many pages where they talk about the guidelines for the photographs. It's very important to have a guideline because the person needs to understand what type of photos can I use for this company. What's the saturation level? What is the mood? What is the picture supposed to tell you when you look at it? And the pictures are probably one of the most important things to think about, especially if there's a person in it, because subconsciously, we as humans, even though I feel like an alien all the time, we tend to look at the face first. So you really got to make sure that your photographs are cohesive and it works throughout every platform and every marketing area that you plan to add your images in. And when I thought about this, I imagined a confident, strong woman who was also being herself and owning it, but with pastel, fun colors. It's also really great to think about quotes or things that these people would say. So that's why I decided to add a few quotes just to get an idea of what these people are thinking and the overall vibe of the photograph. Now we're showing the social media, and this is really, really important, especially because everyone is on social media and it's kind of one of the best ways to grow as a company. And it's how a lot of companies today, brands, are exploding, and you need to have that good social media. So I think it's so important to be able to show social media templates to give an idea of what a quote post would look like, or a post with just patterns, or a post with the mock-up. And I just basically gave an overall idea of how I would handle this specific beverage on social media, as an example in the app and an example up close so you can get an idea of what that grid looks like. I really love it. I actually feel like this looks so unique. I have not seen this specific style. So I feel like this would work really well. I really truly wish this was a real client, but I'm happy with it. And this is the last part of the presentation where I show the mock-ups. This is the beverage, this is the packaging that I worked on, and this is kind of the most important part because this is what the product will look like when the person grabs it. So I used a few examples, a few angles, different backgrounds. It's really, really good to have multiple examples of how the product would look and how it would be branded. I also made sure to show multiple. So I have 3 products versus 1 product. It's good to also show how you would handle the logo when you are putting it in an ad or a social media post. And for these, I think I found free mockups online when I did this. Yeah. I was able to do some research and I found some free PSD files where I could just use their mockups and add my design in the mockup. But having these mockups are so super important because they need to see what the product looks like. And finally, I make sure to have just a final landing page asking for your thoughts, letting them know about when the timeline is for feedback, just my email, and saying how excited I am to be working with them. And that is my entire presentation that I came up with. So I presented it to her like she was my real client. I treated this like a real project with a real timeline. And let me tell you, she loved it. She loved it so much. I remember she was like, this is exactly what I was thinking. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I would bring this to life if I could. And I was just like, yay! I also love it too. I wish I could bring it to life. I would say this is a good time for a drink. A good celebration drink. Okay, now we're going to talk about the craziest, most awesome part from this entire thing. So I love my project. I showed it to people, they loved it. I put it on my website, I put it on other sites, and I also put it on my Dribbble account because I have a Dribbble account and you are able to add your services there. So I added a children's book illustrator and I added branding project. And I added the timeline and the amount, just a general idea. And guess what? Someone messaged me about a branding project. A real person. I don't know why I keep talking higher, but yay. So yes, this ends with me getting an actual client job from putting a fake branding project mock-up up on my site. I am going to be completely honest with you. I didn't get this message till 2 or 3 years after I posted this. So I just had it up, kind of forgot about it. And then one day I just randomly got a message and it was from that specific branding project that I had. And I guess the brand just looked like what they were looking for. So yes, it's good to make fake brands and do it in the style that you're interested in. But try not to choose the brand yourself. Try to at least get a friend to come up with the brand that they're looking for. There are also tons of websites and especially on social media where you can get fake briefs and then post it, and you can even be chosen to be featured, kind of thing. Those are super useful. But yeah, it was so cool getting the actual project. So I think I'm actually going to do another video where I talk about the project that I did, which was a lipstick brand, in another video. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this video, it's that you don't need permission to create something that you're passionate about. You can make it now, and you can get real paying clients for it. I did. Just make sure you're doing what you love. Make sure you have a cohesive style, and make sure that you found the correct ways to deal with the clients and design in your specific way, because every designer has their own unique style, and you got to find that. For me, I like colorful, alien, rainbowy stuff, very girly stuff also. And it works for me. But you could be, some gaming or uh, techie type of vibe, or I don't know. What do you like to do? That's a good place to start. So I'm just going to cheers to you making your next brand project. May your brand be better than mine. May you get more clients than me. May your butterflies live longer than mine. May you find clients easier than me. And may your journey be less messy than mine. I think we can all cheers to that. Thank you so, so much for watching. And I think I'm going to finish this. Yes. Thank you so, so much for watching.